Hello and welcome to my spoiler talk for God of War. This is the place where you can come and talk about anything and everything when it comes to the game that is on the topic. And the game that we're going to talk about is God of War. Now, I'm going to give you a warning right now. It is spoiler territory we are in. Huge spoiler territory. So I tell you, go play the game. Come on back. Well, go play the game. Finish the game. Then come on back and have the discussion. If you've not played this game, go buy it, go play it, come on back, because it's so worth it. This game is amazing, and when I put in my non-spoiler review, I said it was phenomenal, and I hold a testament to that. It's almost been 7 days since I started the game, and I think it's still phenomenal from the first time I played it. So I think it's amazing. Go play it. Now, for those who have played the game and want to talk spoilers, welcome. Where nothing is off limits. So if you want to leave comments below, there's no way I could cover everything about this game in the spoiler talk. My notes are insane for this game, and I will tell you right now, I will leave chapter times. Basically, if you go into the video description, there'll be my notes will be separated into sections, and you can click on the timestamp on there, and it will bring you directly to that conversation. So because there's so much in notes, if you want to skip around to your favorite parts, feel free to do that, because I have some of my favorite parts too. But welcome to the God of War spoiler talk. We are going to get started right away because there's so much to talk about, and I mean, we could talk about this game for forever, and if I didn't cover something that you felt was so important that you wanted to discuss, still put it down in the comments below. I'd love to have that discussion with you. Like I said, there's just so much that there's no way we could cover everything in regards to the spoiler talk. So let's get started right away with one of the most, I would say epic moments is when Kratos needs to dig up his past. And I was thinking, he's going to get the Blades of Chaos. And I was like, oh my God, it is the Blades of Chaos. And just leading to that moment was so impactful. Sitting on the boat and basically taking its time, feeling the moment, the weather that was around you, the camera angle that was around you, and how it panned around, and all of a sudden you saw Athena. You're staring into your past. So impactful, because he's facing his past. He literally, not only is he grabbing his past physically by taking the Blades of Chaos and bringing them with him again, but the fact that he has to stare down his past. So amazing, so impactful. I was not expecting Athena at all in this game, but Athena is such a great tool to use because she has been everywhere in the God of War game. She has been such an impact for Kratos. So there's no way that, I mean, it was just a perfect person to use to really bring up his past and the things that he has done. And then the final moment for her when she says that he will forever and always, and I'm probably not quoting it correctly, but I'm getting most of it right, is that he would always be a monster. No matter how much he changed, no matter what he has done to try to fix from what he's done in the past, which is basically this entire game has been the point of him trying to make up for what he has done, because he doesn't want Atreus to do what he has done, because he knows of how bad it was. And we'll get to one moment where he kind of really shares that moment with another character, and just so impactful. But the fact that he says, no, but I'm not your monster anymore. The fact that he is taking ownership, that he still is a monster, but he is choosing to be a different kind of monster now. It just was so strong. And this is why I appreciate it so much from what they have done with not in a reimagine, in a sense, it's a new skin, a new layer of skin, or a new layer of an onion added to this game, where it changes it, but it doesn't forget from what was before. And I think even though there wasn't, and people will say this, and I think, yes, it wasn't as impactful narratively, but there were some layers to Kratos. They just were, the rest of him most of him was so mellow and blunt that the really emotional parts that are really to him like his family and him murdering his own family, that his ashes are his loved ones on his body. Different things like that, the way he's been portrayed by people. The fact that they don't really play off those as much, but the fact that when they bring those into play here, that it just makes so much more impact. And it's just so amazing to behold. And this is where, when I was saying, if you have played the past God of War games, these are moments with Athena, the Blades of Chaos, where even if you knew what the story was like, it still makes a great impact on you. And I think that is just amazing. Hands off. And just, it's so true. That, I mean, the story could not have worked without Kratos. It truly couldn't have. And when I said this in the non-spoiler review, this is what I'm talking about. The Blades of Chaos, Athena into the play, talking about how he's such a monster. And that now he is kind of accepted that he's a different kind of monster. No other game could have done this. Kratos had to be the character. God of War had to be the franchise to tell this story. It just worked so well. I mean, hats off to Sony Santa. Amazing. Now, I'd want to say something in regards to like battling at the Blades of Chaos, that they still felt like the old God of War, yet they felt so new and fresh. And to be honest, I took a little bit more of an aggression when I was using the Blades of Chaos, especially at first. And the way you fight with them just felt so right and familiar, yet still using the new combat system where it worked. But when you hold those Blades of Chaos in hands, I felt like I needed to be more offensive than defensive when I was with the axe and other opponents that I was facing. Now, obviously, later on when I fought other opponents, especially the Valkyries, which we'll get to them, but you do have to be defensive with the Blades of Chaos. But I loved how they let you be aggressive from the start with them, to kind of bring up like, oh, my old friends, I have you in my hands again. I just absolutely loved that. Loved it. And the other part about Kratos' past, the way that they used Atreus and his illness, and that as a physical metaphor to explain how Kratos is holding back the truth away from his son, that to the point it's hurting him. That the fact that because he won't tell his son that he's a god, his body literally is rejecting because he doesn't believe, he doesn't know, and so therefore he thinks he's mortal, and his body is going, no, you're a god, but him as a person goes, no, I'm not, I don't know I'm a god. So when he thinks he's mortal and he tries to act, and he gets frustrated or tries to activate, it seemed like his own anger, his own anger that Kratos can manipulate to have this super strength, his rage, but he just wasn't able to, because he wasn't knowing that he was a god and couldn't accept it. And so the fact that it was an illness for him was so amazing. And the moment that Kratos realized that he cared more about his son than Atreus knowing the truth, that moment was just so powerful, that the fact of how much you could tell finally of how much he truly loved his son. He put his son over his own, over what he thought was right for himself. And that was a final moment where you could truly tell. I mean, you could tell in moments throughout the game, the little moments, that he loved his son. But this was a moment that was a true act of love, that even though it was so hard for him, even when he had to tell him that he was a god, and that Atreus, in a sense, is also a god, when he had to say that, he didn't say it with emotion. He had to say it the way Kratos would say it. But the fact that he had to do it, he had to do it. It was just so impactful. So good. So good. This game's awesome. The story is just impactful and amazing in so many ways. Now, the theme. I want to go to this theme because I talked about it a lot in my non-spoiler review. And the theme of parents, children, family, how there's always a lesson to learn from everything. Everything they've done in this game, there's always some kind of lesson to learn. Whether it was a good lesson or a lesson to say, hey, don't do what I did, or don't do what they were doing, because apparently that's not the way to do it. And it just really made me think, how selfish sometimes parents can be to protect their children. And it just shows that selfishness for themselves, like when Kratos was holding back on Atreus and Atreus is getting sick, that holding back on that does more harm than good. It was just a great message that there's a point where it's too late. And then we'll talk about with that Fraya and Baldur and how that affected their relationship. And it just, a person that is newer to the Norse mythology, it was really cool to find out, because I never knew that Baldur and Fraya were family. And it made total sense once the story went through, and it made sense about destroying the arrows, and then talking about her relationship with her son. And finally, when you know that that's what the story is, it just brought it back to the theme of family. And it just made 10 times more impact. And this is where it's so great. They give you so many context with characters. And then finally things get put together somewhere. And it just, because you know these characters so well, you know Freya's story, you feel bad for her because of her fall from grace. Literally, when you learn about her, that once you learn she was a god, and Mjolnir talked the story about what Fraya did to protect her own people and what she did for her son to protect him, and how her son befriended her for it. There's so much dimension that all went back to the theme about parents and children, and what parents will do for their children to protect them or to teach them or to help them, whatever it is. But there's always a tragedy, or there's a good story behind it. So it's just so much dimension. And the fact that parents will do whatever it takes for their children. Now let's break down the characters. There's also a bunch of other moments I want to talk about, but let's break down the characters. I really want to break down each of them one by one. So let's start off with the big guy. Let's start out with Kratos. So Kratos, his development as a character, like 180 from what the past games have been. The restraint that him as a character holds was told so much of how much he had personally tried to change. There were so many moments where the past Kratos would have just blown up on people, but he held back. So when Baldur came in, the fact that the old Kratos would have beat the crap out of him from the start, but the fact that it had to take like 6 to 7 punches and smacks and touches for Kratos to finally say, okay, now I need to get involved. Just that was so impactful. It just was so different, and it made sense for him. And unfortunately, you could really just tell throughout the game of how much Kratos regretted what he has done in the past. There were just moments when him and Baldur, at the end, when he was gonna hurt, when he killed Baldur, and he said, "The cycle ends here. We must be better." That just goes back to the entire theme of being better than. He said it constantly. He even went back to the beginning when he was telling his son, "Do not be sorry. Be better." He always wanted his son to be better than him. He just didn't know how to express it. And throughout the game, it's just a great theme that was being told, and it just worked. It worked so well. And the fight between Kratos and Baldur in the beginning is so great. It's the best superhero fight ever. I've heard so many people call it that, and they have nailed it down to the wire that it is a true superhero fight. It's like if Superman went against Superman, that's what would happen. It would so good. And then I loved for like we talked about the message about Kratos always teaching a message to Atreus, regardless of what they're doing. The fact that he was justifying the side missions was so great. I loved it. That was saying like, oh, we need resources, or this is a good lesson for you. I think the one lesson that I think I really liked that from side mission wise with Kratos and Atreus together was the one where the person said, "Hey, you can talk to your loved one." And he's like, Atreus is like, "Oh, we can talk to mom." And it's just the beautiful conversation of like, what would you say to her? What would you tell her? And the fact they had that beautiful conversation and that leads up to the moment. And obviously I had a feeling there was no way they were going to let him talk to the mom, but the fact they learned the lesson of not believing everything that is before you. It's sometimes too good to be true. That sometimes you have to hold. It happened on other times too, of when they were going through one of the people's treasure halls, and Atreus was expecting something great through each door, and that he had to limit his expectations and learn to not be more focused about the task at hand and not be thinking about, oh, I wonder what's in there. Oh, there must be something great in there. Oh, there's going to be something great in there. The fact that he as a warrior needs to think it through was so good. And it focused back to the other message with the mom. Don't think about the expectations of what the mom is going to say when the mom appears, because you don't even know if it's going to happen. You just need to accomplish the goal at hand, and then if you get there, that's when you can live in the moment. But you can't live in the moment of what could be or what couldn't be. And that's just so good. So good. Yeah. And then the final thing for Kratos was the final moment, and it was the most emotional moment for me throughout this entire journey, was the end. The end where Kratos finally was able to put his arms around his son. And the way he put his arm around his son was just so impactful, because that moment of touch, that he hasn't really touched his son, embraced him in a loving way like a father and son would, until that moment when they finally accomplished their goal. They released a mother into her ashes into the world, and that he can finally embrace his son was just so amazing, because of the 30 hours you put into this game of Kratos and Atreus and the relationship, going through the rocky parts, going through the hard parts, that all of it was truly earned at the end, that it made its impact. It truly did. And I think this was one of the reasons why I said that Atreus and Kratos' relationship is probably one of the best in media, and is the best in video games. Because the 30 hours is a true, I don't know you, I'm not holding expectations on you, to, he couldn't even touch his son on the back or give him a hug or anything like that. And it had to take 30 hours later throughout this entire journey, through so many emotions, so many scares, so many revelations between them, that was truly earned. And that is why this game is so beyond impressive in a narrative standpoint. One of the best narratives in games, hands down, earned in every aspect of the way. Now let's get to Atreus. Sorry, I got slightly emotional there, because it was so good. It was so good. So I love that he's the moving force and the draw that makes you want to explore more. It's a perfect meld between game development and creators trying to express, to say, hey, you can explore now, but not taking you out of that moment. That they use an actual contextual thing in the world to explain that you can go explore. I think that's just so smart, because all throughout these games there's text below telling you, oh, you can explore now, or the map is open to you. But the fact that you can do it within the world, and it's so organic, again, with a purpose. Everything in here is done with some purpose, for either the future, the current. It's always done with a purpose, always. Now, I really like where the moments in the game where Atreus' emotions affected him as a character when you're moving around in the world. So an example, there's a couple of them. There's 3 of them that really stand out to me. So there's one, the one moment where he does his first human kill, and he's just not into the moment, and he's so slow about going, and you literally have to press a button to get him to move, to try to use reverse psychology and tell him, oh, let's go home now, because clearly you can't handle it, and then he snaps out of it. The other moment is when you come out of the light, and he pulls you out of the light, and he's so mad at you, and he tells you how he was so mad because he left you. You left him, and he's like, again, you left me again, and he was so upset. He had to go through all these enemies to wait for him, and he felt like he left them purposefully. And throughout that entire time, it's just so silent, and you can feel the tension in the room the whole time. You can feel that tension, and that's just so great. The fact that you don't have to do a cutscene to express emotion throughout a time, that it just doesn't go away. That's why I love is that these moments just don't go away. They don't just say, well, the cutscene's over, everything's fine now, Atreus is going to act like normal. No, it's an impactful moment, and that should stay throughout the gameplay, and it just did. And the final one where it really impacts the gameplay is when Atreus, he learns he's a god, and it's on your way up the mountain again, and that he becomes reckless. And so when you're asking him to request to shoot certain arrows, he'll go, whatever. But there are times where he would make fighting decisions, and I would click the button to have him shoot an arrow to help me out in combat, and he wouldn't listen to me. So impactful, because it made me feel what the way Kratos was feeling. Not only did I not like the way his attitude was to start, I didn't like his attitude, not at all. I didn't like the way the attitude was from the start. But the fact that in the combat, he wasn't helping me. It just helped facilitate that even more of my anger towards Atreus, and more of my, okay, kid, you need to listen up, because clearly you are out of line. And then finally, they had that moment, but it just helped build the tension, and it just worked. It worked so well. Again, combining the things and not letting it go. Keep that thing rolling throughout the time, or else it wouldn't. If he was acting like that up the mountain, and then he was listening to me during combat and doing everything I said, it would pull me out of the moment, pull me out of what Atreus is feeling at the moment. It wouldn't have worked. So, and the final thing that I really like, and it's kind of a compliment to both Atreus and Kratos, is that in the final fight with Baldur, throughout the game, you feel like he's turning into a true warrior. But it finally hit me literally hit me. When you're fighting Baldur in the last level, in the final boss for him, there's a moment where Kratos and Atreus are basically switching off blows and reading each other. So like Kratos would do a punch, and then Kratos would do a punch. Atreus would come in with a kick. Kratos would come with a punch, or then Atreus shoots an arrow. That they're so synced up that it's so believable, because they've been through so much combat together, that it truly not only showed of how much they are together as father and son, because that's near the end, that they are also together as warriors, and that they understand how they fight and how they can help each other through combat, and that Kratos could never do it alone, and Atreus can never do it alone, that together they are better than what they are as separate entities, that they need each other. It was just an awesome reckoning moment, that they showed that they're a true force to be reckoned with, that they should be feared as warriors together. Super cool. I liked that. I caught that at the last minute. I was like, dang, they feel really powerful, and they feel so in sync, and I just it made sense. It just clicked. Now, Mimir, and I probably pronounced his name wrong. I don't think I did, but I might pronounce some of these names wrong. I really try to get the pronunciations right, but and it always bugs me too. So I'm gonna probably bug myself if I notice I get the name wrong. But anyways, Mimir, I want to say he's the greatest storyteller. Truthfully, on the boat rides, it was just so great to listen to him and his stories, to talk about different myths, and it was just so fresh. It was so fresh. It was just so fresh. I literally would sit in the boat ride and just wait to finish the story, because the story was so enjoyable. It was just so good. And I do like that he's kind of literally watching your back, kind of fresh way of doing that. And then The only thing for him is I don't know where you would go with him from here. I kind of have a feeling of how they're setting up the other characters, but for Mimir, I don't know what they're doing with him, which is quite interesting because he has such he's basically the keeper of all things information wise, and so he's very reliable and useful in that sense. So I'm curious on, especially with Ragnarok coming, how will he play in the part of Ragnarok? I intentionally haven't looked into Norse mythology and what takes place technically in Ragnarok because I want to be surprised of how they handle it in this game. I might later on, but at the moment I did not look up what the fates are usually with these individuals because a lot of people die in Ragnarok. That's what I know. But for well-developed character, love him. He's great. Great voice acting. I think they got his voice actor perfect. That role was great. Now, for the two trolls, Brok and Sindri, best storefront people in video game history. It kind of reminded me of Resident Evil 4 of the merchant, if the merchant actually was a character. I liked it. He just appeared everywhere. They had an explanation, which was super cool, in that it kind of fit with the lore. I like it. I like it a lot. And I loved how they constantly were so mad at each other that they were trying to one-up each other, like one-up making the axe better. I loved that. That was super cool, super exciting. And it was hilarious because they're like, oh, what did he do this time? Oh, well, he actually did a pretty good job. Okay, let me just improve it more. So, and each brother was funny for a different reason, and I loved that. One was so the ways they were so unique that I found them hilarious was that I love that Sindri was a giant germaphobe. I think it's so fresh because at that time period, it's just so brutal and bloody. And so you'd think that at that time period, a person like a germaphobe would not be able to like live during that time. And the fact that you could see of how a germaphobe would handle those situations was just so fresh. And it just was like putting a person that doesn't belong into that area and trying to make them work. It was great. And I love that when he came back, he's like, he got the stone. He's like, I had to get my hands dirty. It's just such an epic moment for him when they came back together again. Now for Brok was my favorite because he would just swear at you randomly and just cuss you out. And and it wasn't every time he talked, but it happened random times. And I would just laugh because I just don't expect it. I don't expect the guy helping me to kind of swear at me and kind of just mock me and it's hilarious. I was so surprised. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. He was my favorite out of the two just because of the dialogue that I was getting from him. And I loved how as the story grows, finally the characters came together and it just showed again, everything in this game has a purpose. The two people, the two storefront keepers, their purpose was to come together and to fix to come back together so they can make the right key for you, which is just coming together. That's just, there's the purpose. Just always go back to that. Now Fraya, my favorite was one of my favorite characters, and then just the epic performance she gave. But I loved how that she was going from the witch to the woods to a god. Just did not expect that. And then when Mimir told her about her story, I just felt for that character. I seriously fell so much of how unfortunate it was for her, how unfortunate her story was, of how all she did was want to do was protect her people, and that went to bite her in the butt big time. And her people befriended her, her son befriended her, and she was all alone. But it was caused by, in a sense, some of it was caused by her for her selfishness. And it just related so much to Kratos because Kratos was not telling Atreus that he was a god. In a sense, that was the same type of thing Fraya was doing to her son. And I was so satisfied the way that she ended up. even though unfortunately, because again, I was really liking that character and I felt for that character when her son died. I in a sense felt for her, but man, that conviction in that performance that actor gave. And I wish I put down the voice actors and who performed as the performers for the motion capture and the voices, because they deserve credit, because this moment for Freyja was just so powerful. I believed every word she said. I believed of how much conviction she had on hurting Kratos and Atreus. And I love the context at the end of Atreus talking to Kratos and being like, why is she so mad? I mean, I already knew, but the fact of having that conversation, and then when he told Atreus that I would do the same for you, I would die for you, and having that near the end again was another moment that's just so earned, that Atreus was so surprised by that, but it just grew their relationship more, which is so great. And I just love what opens up for her. I've wanted to talk about spoilers for a long time, so I'm watching all the different information in regards to, because Cory Barlog, the director of God of War, is going all over spoiler casts right now of the major publications and kind of talking about the game, and he said that this is kind of a setup for Freyja for a future in the franchise. Of this is just the beginning for her, and it's a great start for her, that this is an origin for her. And I think if she returned in something, whatever she does, you feel like it's justified based off what she's experiencing and what she has experienced. So it's just, it was just so good. Freyja's just so good in this game. So good. Baldur. It's a character that is such a tragedy. That you don't notice it's such a tragedy. At first you're just like, oh, it's just someone that really just pissed us off and we just killed him. So, but it was just so unfortunate that, again, it was telling a story of how every decision someone makes is either a lesson you want to learn from and be better for, or it's a lesson that you want to take with you. And unfortunately, Baldur's is a lesson that is one that you want to learn from, because, and from Freyja too, of the way Freyja affected her son and her choices impacted his life and what he has done with those choices. But the fact that Kratos killed him, and I already mentioned this, but saying that it ends here. We need to be better than this. The fact that Atreus saw that and saw what Baldur had become, and knowing that, hopefully Atreus will learn from that. It will be really interesting to see. I love the foreshadowing of the arrows, though. I was like, I've been thinking throughout the beginning when Freyja took the arrows and put them in the fire, saying, "Promise you won't use these ever again." And I completely forgot that he put an arrow, broke one off and put it to kind of connect his quiver. I forgot what you call it, a quiver or something like that. The things that hold the arrows, to hold it together. I forgot he did that. And it was just so amazing foreshadowing. Again, everything has a purpose, and that had its purpose. That purpose was to allow him to be able to die. And it was just so cool. So cool. I just something that I would never picked out. And I mean, the only part that I would say that at first he wasn't a dimensional character. At first he was very not a bold character. But I think once you went into Helheim and saw the way he hated his mother and resented his mother for what she had done to him, I think you could feel for the character a little bit more, which made hurting him worse. Even though he was going to kill his mother and you understood that and you wanted to stop him, because you are meant to, and justifiably, you feel for Freyja more than you feel for Baldur. But just that it adds a dimension to him, that even though he was there for such a short time, and I really didn't feel like he was I really never felt there was a main villain. It was just him kind of appearing every now and then, that he has his own business to attend to, that it just, for him, it just added a whole new dimension to him that made me more curious about the character. And then unfortunately I had to kill him. Sorry. Had to kill you. You were trying to kill your mom, so you're gonna get it. So Moody and Magni. and I probably pronounced Magni wrong, but these characters were fun. I mean, they really weren't around enough to really get dimension and care about them. And I felt like what they did kind of made their point. It kind of set up Thor, and we'll talk about Thor later. Definitely going to talk about Thor later. It helps set up Thor and kind of what the family's like and like their family itself. And it all goes back to the theme. Again, family goes back to how family is treated, how people are treated within the family. And you just learn about kind of how Thor treats his kids and how you don't want to treat your kids like that. Because at the end, when you kill Moody, and I mean you kill Magni, and when Moody comes back, Moody comes back and he says Thor blames Moody for Magni's death, so he doesn't care what happens doesn't care what happens to Moody. What a dick dad. Like literally that just shows what a terrible father Thor is. Those are your kids. And it just really shows really what a bad parent he is and what not to do as a parent. Now, when he shows up later, which we'll talk about in a second, I'm curious if Thor is going to avenge their death, and that's why he shows up, but we'll talk about more of that later. But now they're both are dead. We don't need to see him anymore. And, you know, they probably were, you would say, the least fleshed out characters, but again, they still served their purpose for certain reasons. They still serve the purpose of understanding more of the lore of the world, for a kind of moment for Atreus to kind of show of the path not to take, and to learn that lesson. He was a great setup for it, especially because of his anger, and controlling his anger was such a theme. And how, I guess we're kind of going back to Atreus and Kratos for a second, but I loved how Kratos was showing such a good example to control your anger. And he was mentioning it constantly about anger, and you need to control it. In that Kratos, I think, in the first 3 games, and obviously the prequel, he just always was angry. I think he just always had the rage. And here it's so controlled, and it's controlled for certain moments that are a flick of a switch. Like when the first fight with Baldur, he says, I wonder who else is in the house. He loves his son so much, he's able to bring out the rage to protect his family. So I think it just was a great lesson to learn together in that way. Now, so let's go over some of the biggest ending stuff, because there's some really cool ending stuff that happens. So one is when you get on top of the mountain, finally, and you figure out that Atreus' mother is actually a giant. Shocked me. Literally shocked me. I did not expect it. Also that her giants foretold everything that happened was also mind-blowing, of like, wow, this is so impressive. So cool. And then the final one, the final piece, and it was just that you kind of saw her handprint in the yellow of the things you've been climbing and looking for throughout your journey, to basically show that Fraya had walked the path that you once walked. So much. Oh, it's just so good, because it gives you justification for having a gameplay, not a designing mechanic for players to understand I can climb that, but have justification in the world to say that's why you have it there. And the fact that she went to every one of those spots and walked the literal path that they were going to walk and painted those there showed how powerful is really Faye. Mother, or they call her mother, but her name's Faye. How powerful she really was. It's just so impressive to see, and I hope we get to learn more about her, because it's just the fact that she walked the entire path is just so impressive, and it showed how good they are at foretelling things to come. That, oh my god, when they show that little section of what I can't tell what it is. I'm still looking at it. I'm still analyzing it personally. I think Kratos is lying there dead or unconscious, and Atreus is literally out of his mouth is birthing the world serpent. but I don't know what else that could be. I'm still looking into it because I have no idea. I'm digging through the mythology to try to figure out what the heck is going on. But the fact of the foretelling and just seeing what was there was so cool. It was so cool. And that it's a great tease, but then also the fact that Kratos didn't want to tell his son wanted him to see it, because I think he wanted to hold that back, which still showed he wanted to hold things back from his son to protect him, which I think showed that they had made progress, but not all the progress in the world, which is like any relationship or any friendship that people make, is that they're not going to always tell you everything. It takes a lot to give you everything about them. Now, when you find out, I love the delivery of how they gave, how Atreus is Loki being like, well, I don't get it. They were getting my name wrong the whole time. They were calling me Loki. Like, I don't get it. I just love that. It was such a casual way to bring it up, but yet have its moment, because in the camera angle, Kratos turns his head, and you kind of like see half his face and see his expression while Atreus is looking at him, and it's just like a moment of like, what? And I did see snippets of, once I saw that, I caught on to snippets that they were revealing throughout the time. So like when Kratos told him he was a god, and Atreus said, well, can I turn into an animal? And he said, could I turn into a wolf? Loki's known for the wolf. So there were snippets throughout the story. Once that came into play, I looked up to see what else appeared in the game that I missed, that he was Loki the whole time. But we'll see. It was just so impressive. And the fact that he starts Ragnarok. And this is the interesting thing, that I don't know what the story is going to be next, but it's a tie. For me, it felt like a tie between father and son, and understanding that Kratos, when he was in the past games, he started a path to kill a lot of people. Kratos has done a lot in his past. He's murdered a lot of people throughout his time, and he regretted every minute of it. But now him and Loki, and potentially him as Loki, and Loki Atreus, they're both interchangeable, is the fact that he might be continuing the path his father had started. That because technically Loki starts Ragnarok by killing Baldur, and he did. Technically he didn't kill Baldur, but he was a part of it, and so therefore that counts, is that he is starting a path that his father did as well. And that, in a sense, trying not to make the same mistakes, they ended up probably making the same mistake that he did, that Kratos has made, which is so interesting. I hope they kind of explore that more, because they kind of set it up perfectly that way. So I hope that's the case, because it would just be so interesting to see of Kratos going, you are going down the wrong path, let me stop you before it's too late. But it might be too late already. And they were, in a sense of doing something good, they done something bad. So now let's get to some of the extra stuff within this game that was just super fun. Now, the Valkyries. Taking on the Valkyries as a side mission seemed like a true testament of my combat skills when fighting them. They each had their own different style. Each one was different in the way I had to take it on. It was just so fun to do. I enjoyed it beyond belief. I really did. And I think I am prepared for any combat scenario after fighting them and the Queen. And the final release, that Fraya is the Queen of the Valkyries, was such an interesting play of showing how powerful she really is. And it kind of makes sense a little bit, because in the final battle, when she comes to you, and I finally, when they mentioned this, I was like, that made so much sense. So when she came to you, she looked like a bird, and then she went from transforming from a bird to a human. I don't know what kind of bird, but I'm assuming it's the similar bird to the Valkyries. And again, I don't know my Norse mythology, so I don't know exactly what kind of bird. So please don't, if you want to let me know in the comments below, I'd love to hear it. But she was a bird, and then she turned into Fraya, which would make total sense of why she turned into a bird, because the Valkyries are birds. So it just made total sense. It was a perfect happy marriage. And again, a little snippet that made sense once you opened up more in a purposeful side mission that opened up a whole new understanding of a character. Great. That was really, really great. The dragons. So I loved fighting the dragon in the mountain, and I think I'm literally, if they made a movie, I would love to see a sequence like that in a movie. I literally would love to. It was probably one of the most cinematic, especially at the end, in the way that the dragon fell with its mouth open and Kratos standing right in the middle. Just so cinematic, so powerful, such a strong message to show how strong Kratos still is and what kind of a warrior Kratos still is. But the other part is when you run into the dragons on the side mission. That was super cool because I was not expecting it. And how I kind of came upon it was even more interesting. So I was doing a side mission where I had to destroy Thor's statue. And so once I destroyed the statue, I was like, oh, there's the dock. Let me go check it out. And then I was like, oh my God, there's a dragon here. Holy cow, there's a whole level here. Oh my God, I got to free the dragon. Oh shoot, am I going to have to fight the dragon? There's just so much. And then the fact that while it's captured and you're trying to do combat, it opens up a new type of way to change up the gameplay by having the dragon shoot energy at you while you're trying to fight. So you have to rethink your combat while you're trying to fight to save the dragon, and the dragon doesn't know you're trying to save it. And who knows? They might remember that you saved the dragon later. I heard a hint from Corey Barlog that could be the case. So it's just so interesting. And the fact that when Atreus said Mom would want me to free the dragon, it just made Kratos say, yes, I'm in. Let's free this dragon. Free all the dragons. And it just showed of something that they can share together to help honor their mother. Was just so good. And I do have to say, like, not only did that level appear, that was kind of a cool way of a sense of discovery where just these entire levels kind of appeared out of nowhere for me. And it was just so impressive to see and watch and take in that I just was at awe of the sense of discovery. This was where the sense of discovery really blew my mind in regards to discovering something entirely new that I would never have if I didn't have that sense of exploration in this game and discovery. And when I talked about the map and how just not distinctive it was, this is why I loved it so much, was because when I was traveling around to places, I truly felt like I discovered something. I truly felt like I personally discovered it, not that the map told me it was there. And I think that as a player was just so new and fresh, even though that's been around for games forever. It's just games nowadays haven't done that a lot recently and done it really well. That it was such an impact. It was just so good. And this is why this game is amazing. This is why this game is definitely in consideration for the best game. I think, even as I'm thinking farther on, I think this is potentially one of the best games of the decade, of just how well it does everything and the purpose of everything. Gaming with a purpose. I'm going to keep expressing that because of how right on that is. This is gaming with a purpose. So after you get done with the main story, I do like that you can discover some of the other worlds, but and that you do get cut off a little bit. You can't go to a couple places that I would really like to explore, but we can try them in later games. Why not? But I just liked how each world felt so different, and it introduced new kind of mechanics, new different ways of tackling it. I love the labyrinth, the poison labyrinth maze. It adds a fresh new way of handling the combat. It adds a new way to the exploration, and it adds a sense of anxiety while you're doing it, but a good sense of it at the same time. And I don't know, it kept me playing for hours more, and I think I could easily be playing for 20 hours extra for the 30 hours I was already playing this game. And you could potentially be playing this game for at least 100 hours, which is insane. But the fact that I want to keep going back, I want to do other things right now. I want to play some other games right now. But the fact that I keep wanting to go back is so impressive because of what everything they've done is just so well done with a purpose that it makes me want to go back and do more. So let's talk about this secret ending. Let's talk about it because it is cool. So after you go home, and I love that they don't make you go home. And it's something that I did consciously think about throughout the game was when I was looking at the map, I was like, is there a way for me to go home? Because I noticed in the beginning of the game that there's little snippets of things to come for you in the game. There's doorways, the vines are there. Those are the two I mainly noticed. I think there's probably more if I go back and play it again, which I'm definitely considering going back and playing this game again, probably in the summertime when I have more time. Right now, there's some games I really want to get done and review and do other stuff with, so I'll probably hold back and play the game all over again in the summertime. But just there were snippets, and I was like, oh, I could go back to them, and I just couldn't find a way home. But then when they kind of hinted by having the conversation of like, well, let's go home, or we can explore if you want. And to be honest, I explored more, and I didn't think about going back home. I felt like as a journeyman, I needed to complete everything before I could go home and lay to rest. But then I was like, okay, home is really close by, so let's go home really quick. So I did it, and the secret ending is like going to bed. Said a few years later, you're woken up by some lightning, your house is being destroyed, and here is Thor. And you're like, who are you? And I could really tell it was Thor. But just the moment, like a old school Western of like showing your gun on the side, except for him, it's showing his hammer. It was just so good. So well done. Great tease. And who knows, maybe Thor is not as a dick of a dad as we thought. Maybe he is coming back for revenge for his two sons that they have killed. So you never know. But I was looking at some comments below, and I do want to talk about this. It's nothing to do with the game mainly, but I loved the Avenger jokes people kept making about the secret ending of going like, he's come to talk to them about assembling a team. It was just really funny. I thought it was hilarious, but I'm really curious on how they're going to do the look of Thor. Because the Marvel universe is so engraved in a lot of people, I wonder how people are going to react to how they'll handle Thor. And I hope I think they'll handle him great. I think they will. I really do. And I just really hope that, like God of War 2, the original God of War 2 on the PS2, that big fight you have, I hope this game starts out with a big fight between Kratos and the next God of War starts out with a fight between Kratos and Thor. That would be super cool to watch. I'd like that a lot. But we'll have to see. That'll be super cool. Anyways, so overall, after playing the game for over 30 hours and having time to reflect, and I talked about in my non-spoiler review about how this game should be in the conversation about game of the generation. I think it is the game of the generation. And I think more people, as I watch this, more people have never been excited more to talk about games and talk about this game to not only gamers, but non-gamers. I caught myself talking about this game to my coworkers that have no interest in video games. They all look at me like, Mitch, you're dumb. Like, not dumb, but like, Mitch, you're just like, I don't care about games. I don't care about what you're talking about. Kinda, not really. But just like the things that make this game so unique, the camera angle, the non-cut, the story, everything with a purpose. It just, I went to work on, finished the game on last Sunday, and I went to work with a smile on my face on Monday morning because of the game. And I haven't felt like that in such a long time, that it just made such an emotional impact on me. And I usually I would say like, yeah, I mean, I'm very like, I'm very subjective about things, but this feeling was just so strong. And I did look up other videos about people and how they felt about the game. Even the people that didn't like the game very much, no matter what, they all came back with a smile on their face. And so I felt like I wasn't the only one. And so that is why I mentioned this. That it's just the feeling it makes you feel because of the revelations, the way the story works, the way the game happens with a purpose, everything like that. It just works. And it really makes this game stand alone from all other games out there. And that I wonder and I hope that game creators, and it probably won't happen for these first year or two chunks, because those games are probably almost done and they're not able to make these adjustments. But seeing games have more purpose in regards to side missions, in regards to themes that everything done in the game serves a greater purpose or serves the purpose of the theme rather than go fetch this, go get that. I know we're going to get that in those Japanese JRPGs regardless. But if we get more games with a purpose, I feel like these moments are going to be better, even better. Like where games are going to go up from here. And I think developers really need to look at this. And Cory Barlog, creative director of God of War, he worked on God of War 2, and then he worked on this one, which was impressive. God of War 2 was a great step in that direction as well. He has mentioned he wanted to do a different project. And if I'm Sony, I'd give him his own studio, let him do whatever he wants, because this guy is a genius. He's made 2 huge blockbusters for Sony. He has taken a franchise that people were thinking was dying and has rejuvenated it for another generation to come. And for the generation that even experienced the past games, has rejuvenated them to enjoy the game. That I would give Cory Barlog his own studio. I would give him as much time as he wants on the next game. And I think Cory Barlog needs to be in the conversation in regards to those developers that are known by name. Obviously, I'm not going to say like he's not a Hideo Kojima. Hideo Kojima is his own feat. But, the people at Naughty Dog and the people are known there. People like Guerrilla Games, the people that are known there. He needs to be in that conversation of a developer and a person, like a David Jaffe. People know who David Jaffe is. Cory Barlog needs to be a household name because he has hit 2 giant hits in this games industry, and he has taken a game and has put a masterpiece out there based off other people's reviews. I would call it a masterpiece, actually. I think about more and more. I can't deny what they're saying it's so true. It is a masterpiece. And for Sony Santa Monica, this showed that they still got it. They still got talent in that studio, and that studio is going to stay. There was some trouble with Sony Santa Monica in that this was their shot to say, we are worth keeping open. And I think they proved that they are still an A+ studio. And I think they have taken an evolution into the next step to show that they are worth keeping around. And I would put all of my money buckets in there too, because it's not just Cory Barlog that makes this game great. He was a big driving force with it, but as his conversations that happened, other people came up with ideas. Other people made the actual game. He's the guy that has to throw the ideas out, talk about things with people, but he's not literally making this game with his, making it, programming the things. So those people deserve the credit too. I think this is I did put in my notes, it's a masterpiece, I guess. So this is a masterpiece, and I don't think it will ever be forgotten in the world of games. I really don't. I think this will, and I really, really hope. I know we have a lot of good games to come. I know a lot of people have their hopes on Red Dead Redemption 2. I just hope this game doesn't get lost in that. And I just have a feeling it won't. I really don't think it won't. I don't think it will get lost in it. I do not think that, and I will be so surprised if there's a game this year that tops this one. And we'll have to see. They put a really high bar for studios, and studios got now hit it. So we'll see how it goes. So that is my spoiler talk for God of War. What did you guys think of the game? Let me know in the comments below. Remember, nothing is off limits right now. We are in spoiler talk territory. Talk about the game because I want to talk about it with you guys. So put your comments below. If I missed something on here, let's have that conversation about it because there's so much more that I had not talked about that I would love to talk about with you guys. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. And if you want to keep up with the content I release each and every week here on Freeze Frame Rate, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. My name is Mitch, and I'm saying thank you so much for watching this video. And I'm signing off saying, see you soon.